Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the WTM Travel Innovation Summit in association with TTI. Thank you for all coming along. I was explaining to my speakers that the exhibition's enormous, so I know there'll be people coming in for the next 10 or 15 minutes, and that's fine. Quite a few of you will be Travel Technology Initiative members, but some of you won't be, so I just wanted to take a little minute or so just to explain what Travel Technology Initiative is. Where travel and technology people meet, share and learn. TTI is a membership organization. It's a European membership organization. It's a not-for-profit organization. And it has three aims. Number one is education. We have conferences and events like today throughout the year, which we invite members to. Members of TTI can bring along 2 people from their organization free of charge to events, and then anyone else has to pay a little bit of money to cover the catering cost. So we focus on digital travel events and try and keep our members up to speed with what's happening in this exciting world in which we live. Number 2, it's an opportunity for travel industry professionals and for the technology people serving our industry to come together and talk, swap notes, and I suppose all benefit from the ability to share their experiences. Number 3, and very importantly, TTI also has a number of pan-industry initiatives. The one that's most established at the moment is the one called TTI codes. TTI codes are unique hotel identifiers, and TTI saw a problem in the industry, which was agreed with, that so many tour operators and other travel companies connect to multiple bed banks and hotel databases, all of which are selling the same hotels, and you don't want to offer the same hotel 10 or 20 times. So what TTI did was initiate TTI codes, so each hotel carries a unique identifier. So whether a hotel calls itself the Hotel Splendid in Rimini or the Splendid Hotel in Rimini, it'll be identified through its TTI code as the one hotel and can be deduplicated if needs be. Then we're just introducing a new initiative called TTI Places, trying to do the same with locales as with hotel identifiers. And that is, if there's an area like the Côte d'Azur, for example, that might have one or more names that describe it, then actually they can be identified as a unique place with a unique TTI place identifier. So that's TTI in a nutshell. There are leaflets on your chairs, and if you're interested in joining, it's a very low-cost organization to join because it's not for profit. Just pick up the leaflet and check out the website, which at the moment looks pretty hideous, but there's a new mobile responsive website coming soon in about another couple of weeks. It wasn't quite ready for today. Let me introduce our speakers. And over here we have our 4 speakers who are going to each make a presentation for 15 minutes. And then I hope we'll have time to take questions from you. And so if any questions pop into mind, do please make a note of them, mental note of them, or write them down so that at question time we can actually ask our questions. And a couple of the speakers have been able to allow us to make their presentations available online. So if you don't want to take notes, on the way out, leave your business card, and then TTI can drop you an email when those presentations are online. Let me just introduce our 4 speakers. Furthest away from me, the only gentleman wearing glasses today, is Andy Phillips. Andy is chairman of Review, the reviews organization, but I know Andy from a long time ago when he founded one of the very first online hotel accommodation providers called Active Hotels. I think, Andy, that was bought by Priceline, is that right? Made you multimillionaire, is that right? No, okay, well, no comment, fine. But Andy is a trailblazer, and that's why I've invited him along here today, because he gets in there at the start of a new way of doing business. Next to him is Regis Pezus. He is Senior Manager Product Innovation from Carlson Wagon Lee. And just when we thought that maybe business travel, corporate travel might be dying, in favor of unmanaged travel. That is, you just jump on an EasyJet and fly there, book your own hotel. Actually, there's much more to be done. And it's interesting, Regis, that you have the job title, Senior Manager Innovation, Product Innovation in your job title, because 5, 6, 7 years ago, the word innovation didn't exist in job titles. Next to him, this is two away from me, is Dirk Tietz. Dirk also has a very fashionable job title. He's Chief Transformation Officer for Dare Touristic, and he'll be talking about how he's transforming Dare Touristic for this digital age in which we live. So there was no such thing as a Chief Transformation Officer a few years ago, so you're a new breed, Dirk. Last and not least, I've invited Jeroen Oskam, who's Director of Research Centre of the Hotel School in The Hague, to talk about Airbnb. Jeroen has been leading a research team who's been looking at the effect that Airbnb, which everyone will agree will be the #1 disruptive organisation in the travel industry, how Airbnb has been affecting different cities. And we're going to hear from Jeroen to understand what Airbnb, the effect it's been having on, I suppose, the hotel sector within cities. Is that right, Jeroen? That's lovely. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's start the proceedings. Let me welcome Andy to make the first presentation. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Paul. For those of you who haven't heard of Revu, just 20 seconds. We provide social content solutions to companies in about 60 countries in 30 languages, also normally at the enterprise end. So we work with some of the leading travel brands that you'll know of, but we also have a big focus outside of travel as well. It means that my expertise in travel is slightly historic here, so I apologize if some of this is less relevant to you guys. I wanted to quickly talk about some of the trends that I see, mainly outside of travel, but having walked around World Travel Market this morning, many of these things I think apply here as well. So big trend in the startup space at the moment is the gig economy, obviously. We're going to talk a bit later about Airbnb. A lot of startups emerging in the whole sort of user-generated content, big data. If you haven't got machine learning in your title when you're raising money at the moment, then you're missing a trick. Someone was telling me, it resonates back to the year 2000 now, that the price per machine learning expert now is about $10 million if you sell for an acqui-hire here. And I remember very much the same thing happening back in 99, 2000 for internet businesses. Other things that are very fashionable at the moment, blockchain technology, different payment methodologies to try and cut out banking costs or minimize banking costs, customized engagement, customized offerings depending on the big data analysis behind it. New interfaces coming up all the time, chatbots, driven by the uptake of mobile. Here, it's hard to do a transaction on mobile or enter all the information in statically. So voice recognition chatbots are very trendy. And then, of course, augmented and virtual reality. The reason I'm bringing this up is I think bringing innovation to market is more important now than it ever has been in travel here. And that's on top of all the sort of established trends like the growth of mobile, the rapidly decreasing cost of data storage, data processing costs, or data processing speeds going up and up and up. So a time of massive change, which makes innovation ever more important. Yeah. And this is not for travel specific, but if you look at innovation by the experts, at least that's what they would argue, the venture capitalists, these are kind of the trends that you'd expect to see. So broadly speaking, venture capitalists do not want to make a loss. They want to make more than 30x. So they want to be down the right-hand end of this chart here, but the majority of the investments they make return less than the money that they put in to it. And the reason I'm putting this up here is often innovation is hard. Even the experts get it wrong, and if you're starting out on that path, you have to be prepared for failure. On that rather cheery note, this is what I wanted to talk about. So I was going to talk about three things. Firstly, how do you determine the proposition? How do you get a solid basis for launching a new and innovative idea? Secondly, how do you go about launching it? And then thirdly, how do you decide whether to stick with it or give up and do something else? Yeah, so I'll give you some quick content on that. The first thing that most startups or most new innovative ideas have to come up with is some basic research on on the nature of the proposition. And the first thing you would normally do is go and look at the analyst reports. You'd look at Jupiter, Forrester, obviously TTI is the most valuable of all of them. Here, Focusrite, these kind of guys. Once you've looked at that and think it looks vaguely interesting, you would then talk to other experts in the industry, so you get some feedback on what the industry says. Thirdly, you try and get some direct consumer or customer feedback here, and this is getting very valuable here. But even in that instance where the customers have told you what they want, you can't always believe this, as I'm sure we're all got experience. So actually the most critical thing for any startup idea is what do customers actually do? Not what do they tell you, but what do they actually do in the situation? Will they actually purchase your product rather than just say that they will purchase your product? So with that, I wanted to illustrate what I think some of these things are good for. The analysts are very, very good at giving you this kind of feedback. They do it much more professionally than I'm doing it here, but to give you broad trends about what's happening in the industry. So it's hugely valuable information here. However, if you're going to build your proposition or your innovation on one basis of one thing, it's always got to be what customers do. And as I'll show you in a minute, these things can be, the feedback from these different data sources can be significantly different here. So a sound foundation is to build it on what customers do. A slightly less solid foundation, excuse the rather appalling graphics, here is just to build it on the basis of what the analysts tell you. And just to illustrate this, as Paul mentioned, I launched a hotel booking business back in 98, 99, which got bought by Priceline and became 55% of what's now Booking.com. And these are two of the big trends that we were told by the analysts at the time. So the analysts were saying for merchant rate, or net rate, as many of you'll know, was the future. All bookings are going to be via net rate, was basically the summary at that point. However, when we talked to the industry, particularly people who've been in the industry a long time, they said it's going to be a combination of both. It always has been. Depending on how the hotel industry is doing at the time, one predominates over the other here. So they'd tell us both. We then talked to customers. They said, we don't want to pay up front. We don't care. We don't even know what merchant rate or net rate means. We do not want to pay up front here. And if you actually tried it, customers are less than half as likely to book up front or to book and pay up front. So an example of very different feedback from different sections of the market research pyramid. On the right-hand side, another founding cornerstone for the growth of Booking.com, hotel density. The established industry for hotel booking would say you need 20, 30 hotels in London maximum. Once you've done that, you start to cannibalize your existing hotel supply. So that's what the analysts would have told you. If you talk to the industry, they'd say, again, you want a choice of hotels, but you want a reasonably select bunch so they're easy to manage. Here, if you talk to customers, they'd say, we want choice, but only one hotel. And I put a question mark here because we couldn't do this without actually launching the business. It turned out, as everyone knows now, that actually an increased hotel density both drove more bookings, but also massively increased conversion rates. So again, the established wisdom in the industry was slightly wrong. And that was a great opportunity for us. So now coming on to launching, and again, there's no academic basis behind this. This is just what I've found on launching 4 or 5 businesses now. And once I developed my thinking, I then went and talked to LBS and INSEAD, and I realized that actually this has been established for quite a long time. I won't talk you through in detail on this slide, but basically it's saying that entrepreneurs and established businesses think somewhat differently, historically, not necessarily now, about innovation. And whereas an entrepreneur will basically think, I don't really know what I should be doing, but I'm going to bodge something and do it quickly, the more managerial approach is we need to research the hell out of it. Here we get a really established business plan, we launch it, or we get approval from the board, we then launch it with a series of milestones and tick them off with time. And certainly for startups, I've found the entrepreneurial approach tends to work much better. So just to give you an example of that, the way that the startups I work with now, I would normally launch innovation. Firstly, you identify the premise. What's the idea, what's the concept you're trying to launch, and what are the critical success factors for that? So you establish those up front. You then work out what the cheapest and quickest way of testing that premise is here. So basically, it's budget as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Once you begin to get data, you analyze the hell out of it. You try and work out whether it works, whether it doesn't here, and then make a decision about whether to kill or build it. And to give you an example here, this is some stuff we did very early on in hotel booking. We spotted that in Paris, and this is probably evident now, if you put the price up for a hotel, for a 2-star hotel, you take more bookings for it. And that's completely illogical. It's the same hotel, but if you put the price up, you've got more bookings. Evident in retrospect here, but when we went to talk to the consumers, they said, why are you doing this? They said, well, we don't trust the star rating. If they can afford to charge more for the hotel, it must be a better hotel here. So we looked at lots and lots of different ways of testing how to give consumers better information. And consumers said we would trust our friends. Now we're difficult to access their friends at the time. Previous guests, they'd trust. The star ratings was actually quite a long way down, the rating. So we launched hotel reviews back for the first time in the end of 2000, beginning of 2001, and it drove an 80% uplift in conversion for Paris hotels, two-star Paris hotels here. And the way we launched that is we literally rang up consumers and said, would you give us a review for this hotel? We typed it in, put it in HTML on the website here. Very, very quick, very, very cheap to do. But it was such a dramatic impact here that it was very evident that we should then expand that. And as you can see, I'm sure you're aware, hotel reviews are pretty ubiquitous now, certainly on Booking.com, but across most of the hotel's own sites and also across all the OTAs. Another example, user-generated content, slightly more current here. Travel is a fantastic vertical for generating user content. I'm sure we've all been bored by our friends' holiday snaps previously here. It is very, very easy to get some fantastic quality content here. The challenge for the brands is whether that actually helps in converting people to make a booking, or you can monetize that reasonably effectively. So this is what we've done with cottages.com here, where we've asked some of their customers to give us feedback or photos and videos from their holidays here, and we've made that clickable so that you can then click through and get to the cottage that they booked in order to experience that hotel. And it has dramatic increases in conversion on the website, but it also is a use for user-generated content that is spread out across the web and can actually be used to drive business to you here. So it's an excellent way of monetizing user-generated content. And again, we tested that very, very quickly and very, very cost-effectively. It worked, and so we then began to expand it. And similarly, all the trend in travel and elsewhere is obviously with big data. User-generated content is a fantastic way of getting lots and lots of data. You can indicate what days of the week people are satisfied with your property on. You can indicate whether you can get correlation between channel booking, time of year, weather, all this. There's a massive data that you can analyze here. If you ask people in the industry, are you interested in this data? There's a kind of, yeah. But until you actually see it, it's very, very hard. So again, we launched this. We tried it with a very large flight customer here. They looked at it and they absolutely loved it. And again, it gave us the confidence to build the product for real. So that's the first two stages. The go home and go big is much, much more complicated here. And I wish I had a better answer for that. But just wanted to illustrate a couple of things here. First, you'll all have seen the adoption curve for new products and new services here. The chasm occurs at different places in different parts of the literature, but Geoffrey Moore's crossing the chasm is true for most verticals here. And so for those of you who are old enough, back in 2000, there was lots and lots of feedback at the early days of the internet. This is not going to take off. No one's ever going to want to put their credit cards online. Travel, they always want to talk to someone directly here. It looks outdated now. It absolutely wasn't. Didn't feel outdated at the time. It was a genuine uncertainty. Similarly with mobile. I mean, mobile's never going to take off. Fiddly, nasty little interface here. It's not going to work. Absolutely evident now it is going to take off. Having the confidence to stick with a product when the first demonstrators have started to use it, but then not quite knowing whether it's actually going to get to the mainstream is one of the most challenging things with product innovation. And I'm summarizing that a bit with this. At the time, it's very, very hard to tell whether someone is being visionary or delusional. So are they heading off for the stars and the moon, or are they about to step off the edge of the cliff? And unfortunately, the more I work with innovation, the more I get it wrong here. But one of the things I have found here is trying to really base your innovation or stay very, very close to your customers during that process. You can normally see or hear what consumers are saying about your product, and that will give you a real confidence about whether to stick with it or whether you need to change it or back out here. But that said, the stats on innovation are nearly always against you. So even the very, very good companies, over half of the innovations normally fail here. If they say it's not, that's normally slightly massage for public opinion. And I guess the best bit of advice I could end on here is some examples of what success actually looks like. I deal a lot with startups now. Most startups, the original business plan is wrong. Here, they nearly always pivot. The great fashion now is to pivot. Most good startups will proudly say we pivoted once, twice, 3 times here. And most projects, even within big companies, aren't smooth. There are always hiccups along the way. And to give you an example from my own company, as Paul tried to allude to earlier, it was reasonably successful. Here, Booking.com is a very, very large business. Now, looking back to the first 5-6 years of that, both in Amsterdam and in Cambridge, a lot of the projects fail. And this is for the UK end. I'm sure the Dutch were better here, but 75% of our projects failed. The original business plan was completely wrong. We went technically insolvent twice, and we had legal conflict with critical suppliers here, but we did manage to sign up 10,000 hotels around Europe. We had 4,289% growth over 2 years and turned over about $250 million in year 5. And the reason I'm saying that is not, aren't we terribly good? It's actually the opposite here, that this felt absolutely chaotic at the time here. And one of the big challenges with innovation here is to embrace that feeling. If it doesn't feel like it's going wrong, you're not trying hard enough, in my opinion. And so the final piece of advice I want to give is stolen from Winston Churchill. I think success for startups and for innovation is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. And with that, I will end. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you very much, Andy. That's some very good advice indeed. Much appreciated. We're going to move to the world of corporate travel now. And let me welcome our next speaker, Regis, who's going to talk about innovation corporate travel. Let's welcome him, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Regis Pezus. Almost the end of the day, you are in a dark room, so we'll try to make it as valuable as possible. I'm working in Carlson Wagon Travel, which, for the sake of keeping it short, I'm going to refer as CWT. CWT is a TMC, a travel management company. It means that what we do is that we are offering service to companies, and they choose us to service their internal client, so our final client, the consumers, the travelers. What I'm going to explain to you is how I have 3 parts in the presentation. First, I'm going to explain to you 2 main characteristics of our industry, of our market, and then I'll try to give you, let's take that as a testimonial on how we deal with those 2 strong characteristics of our industry and how we try to, as we were saying, we try to survive and try to make even a bit more than that. So first, one first ugly word. And first, as a disclaimer, you're going to hear a couple of ugly words. Not because I have a French accent, but just because I've not been able to find any other alternative. B2B2C. So we are in this business. CWT is the first B. Our customer is the second B. So it's going to be the HP, the Accenture, the O2 of this world, because we are mainly servicing big companies, the Fortune 500s type of companies. And those companies, they are choosing us to serve the final client, the final users, the last C. So our world look like this. What do we have? We have, let's assume it's a random company. We are chosen by one person. Here, the person in white, who is willing to get control, who is willing to get enough security for its travelers. And all the travelers are the people and the men and the women in black here. What do they want? They want, like every one of us, they want freedom. They don't want anyone to give them any rules when they travel. They want convenience. So, in a sense, we end up in this type of consensus between there is one person who is willing for control, and what does it mean, control? Most of the time, those persons are travel managers, travel buyers, and they are looking for control. They are looking for control for a security point of view, but they are also looking for control in order to group their buying power, in order to get better deals. And all the other type of people, they are looking for, again, choice, convenience, rules. If you think about, in your company, there is very few choice that are kind of imposed by your company that you can sneak around. Let's say that your company, they have a contract with Epson for the printers. You're going to say, oh, no, I'm not an Epson guy. I'm an HP guy. So I'm going to buy my own HP, and I'm going to put my printer here. It does not work like this. Like, it's the same for the phone, for the laptop. In our world, I was hearing in the previous speech here, someone talking about the Pandora box of choice. It is true that, and you are here for that, travel industry, because of mobile, because of the number of disruption that occurs in the past years, as a consumer, you have plenty of choice. So we end up in this consensus between control and convenience. So we need to find a consensus. And the issue is that if you try to present that on an axis, so it's a fiction, there is no actual data, but I'm sure it's gonna speak for every one of you. On the vertical axis, you get convenience. So the highest you are, the more freedom you have, the more convenience you have. Oh, it's super easy to sign up. I can sign up with my Facebook. Yes, it is super easy. Yes. On the other hand, the other axis will be control, security. And it's security for the people. So again, keep in mind that we're talking about business travel. So as a company, every single company, they have a duty of care for the traveler. So, and unfortunately, in our world, you need to make sure that if anything occurs, you know exactly where your people are and how you can keep them there. But it's also security of the data. Again, as a company, you need to make sure that the information of your travelers or the information of your company are keep it safe. And the truth is that you end up in this type of situation where the more convenience you are, the less control you have, and the more control you put, the more convenience you remove. Our work at Celebrity is try to find the best consensus. We try to play in this, let's call it the consensus zone, where you find everyone is doing a step toward each other, where the traveler, they accept to lose a bit of convenience, and the travel manager, they accept to give a bit more freedom to the travelers. This is the very first, what I see as a main characteristic of our industry, this constant search of consensus between convenience and security and control. Another ugly word, I warned you, unbundled service. Again, I'm gonna say a very, very simple sentence here, but the world has changed, and it's true that initially we are a travel agency, and a travel agency, one of its main value added is, okay, you come to me and I'm gonna be able to book for you any airline, any hotel, any car rental. That's gonna be, you're gonna get the whole picture of what you can think about your business travel. I'm gonna be able to get that for you. That is not that true anymore, because of course, if you try again to put that on a schema, if you get here the time where as a travel agency, we were able to offer a bundled approach, a bundled offer. So you come to me and I'm gonna be able to give you any type of supplier you want. You can ask for any airline. The truth is that there is so many new entrants in this industry that the choice becomes crazy. Again, I'm gonna referring again to the Pandora box of choice. This is where we are. And the more you progress in the time, the better it is. So on that one, I must confess, I have no idea where we are on the time. So I have a small idea where we are at the beginning. You can say pre-2000, something like 1995. But I have no idea where we are in 2016. But we, at Celebrity, we try to accommodate that. We need to find a way to, we cannot remain with this bundled approach, with this bundled little offer to our traveler and client. We need to offer more than that. What I think, in terms of way of getting out of it, is to go in this, if I have to put a name on that, let's say that it's a diamond, a surface diamond. But we need to find the right number of travel supplier, of hospitality, or new entrants that we can bring to our corporate client with a bit of control, in the sense that what the travel manager they will find that we kind of made this curation approach where we only identify the the travel suppliers that are bringing enough trust to their travel program. And on the other hand, our travelers, they will have an idea that, okay, these suppliers have been stamped by my company and my TMC. This is what we do. We try to, again, narrow down a bit the number of suppliers to offer something that is broader than what it used to be in the past, but again, with a bit more control. How do we achieve this? So again, here, take that as a testimonial. So how do we work with startups, with all those new entrants, with all those wave of disruption? How do we navigate into this world? The first one is that we try to industrialize scouting. So what scouting means here is the identification, the initial way, okay, who are the new players in the travel industry. You can spend your time on T-News, Skift, or TechCrunch, and you can read like 12 hours a day articles on new travel startup. Even if you are 5 or 6 of us, that will not be professional. You need to find the right network of partners that are going to help you. There is also tools, because it becomes, this is a new job. Like, you get people that do that all the time. The way they work is that we as a company, we go to them, we brief them on one particular problem, because it's not, hey, give me the coolest startup in the world. No, that's not the way it works. You go to see those scout agency or those scout organism or scout company, and you tell them, okay, I have a problem in one particular part of my business. I need you to find companies that can support this business for me in a new way. So again, industrialize the scouting. Don't try to do it by yourself by just setting up Google Alerts. Proactive approach. You want to make sure that when you deal with your client, you are not in a position where the client comes to you and say, hey, I have this new funky startup that knocked my door. Can you make a deal with them? You don't want to be in this position. You want to be in a position where you go to see the client and say, hey, we looked at your characteristic. We understand the difference in your, the way you are set up in the world. We think that this company can help you, can support your travel program in an effective way. So again, you need to be proactive. You need to go to your client and offer them partnership instead of the opposite, because that always goes to usually a failure. And last one, and that's a very generic advice, but please start small. In any of your partnership, product integration, start small. Try to find I don't know if some of you are familiar with the notion of MVP, the minimum viable product. It's the same here. Try to find the minimum viable partnership to make sure that you narrow the exact problem that makes sense for your client, and you start with that. If that goes well, continue. But there is so many unknowns. Again, start small. Just to recap, industrialize the scouting, make sure that you have a proactive approach, and start small. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regis. Great presentation. And now let me just get the clicker again for our next speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dirk from DR Touristic, who's going to tell us how he's transforming the organization. Let's welcome him, everybody.
Thank you. Works. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Paul said, I'm a new breed. Haven't heard that before, but in fact, there's not so many chief transformation officers around, and I think there are some, I know some. If you ask them, what do you do? What the heck do you do? I think the answer is very different. In my case, I'm in charge of IT, digital transformation, digital sales, and also CRM. So as you can imagine, on my agenda, there's a lot of topics around online, mobile, CRM, customer, etc., etc. So, by the way, I really like this slide, especially when presenting in the UK with the background. Maybe I have to change it. I still hope I don't have to change it at some one time, but let's see. So, maybe a question to you. How many of you know DR Touristic? Hands up. Okay, maybe a third, half. That's not bad. So I would like to increase that share. Actually, we are number 3 travel company in Europe since we have acquired the co-owned tour operators. So we have become quite big, actually, with 7 billion euros in revenue. Our core business is tour operating, retail, and also destination management companies. And what I would like to do today is to give you a little bit of a flavor what we do, and especially, that's the topic of today, how we want to transform our company. Our biggest market is Germany. That's where our headquarter is. But actually, we're also very active in Scandinavia, Switzerland, UK, Eastern Europe, etc. And of course, our destination management companies are around the globe. So when I hold a presentation, I like to look up actually also sometimes the official definition of what I'm talking about. So today I'm talking about transformation. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes not so much. Actually, I really liked here the second definition I found, because that was new to me. Transformation also means false hair worn especially by women to replace or supplement natural hair. I didn't know that, and that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the first definition you see here. So a complete or a major change in someone's or something's appearance, form, etc. And I think we as their touristic, as many travel companies, we do have to change. Why do we have to change? I don't want to bore you with these kind of things, because probably most of you actually do know this. Of course, our customers change. They search differently, they book differently. At the end, also technology is, of course, driving this. Technology doesn't only change the way we sell our holidays and the people book holidays, but it also changes the way we need to work with our suppliers and also our internal processes, because at the end, the tourism business, it's an information business. The tour operating and retail business, we work with information, nothing else. So, okay, we also have some contracts with hoteliers, etc. We have allotments and prices, but at the end, there's no physical good. So in this sense, I think that especially the tourism industry is even more an industry that can have a disruptive change, which I think it is undergoing. Of course, also the competition is very relevant. There are new market players coming up. Of course, we are thinking as their touristic, how is, for example, Booking.com going? So far, they're a little bit in a different segment, but we don't know, of course, if that's going to be true in the future. So we believe there's no way around transforming our business. Transforming our business, that's not the same for all our units. We are actually very different in the different markets. So I'll give you a little bit of a glance of the different markets we have. Our biggest market, as I said, is Germany. The context in Germany is that there's still a lot of sales going through travel agents. So on the typical tour operator travel package business, it's still around 80%, 75%. Going to retail shops. So that's very, very much. So that's really different. We are actually in Germany market leader with our retail brand Der. We are the biggest and most successful retail chain. And our tour operating business covers actually quite a lot of different things, like simple packages, sun and beach packages, and also very complex itineraries. As you can imagine, we are a quite traditional company, so of course, we want to be also market leader in the online arena. And that's, of course, one of the key initiatives that we want to, or we are pursuing. We have started to build up 2 or 3 years ago, actually a very professional e-commerce unit, which has already around 100 staff, which is really specialized in online marketing, website, etc. So really investing a lot of energy and money in these kind of competencies, because we think it's really important. Also, we want to get over the multi-channel. We want to go omni-channel. So we believe that for the customer, it's really important in the future that we connect online and offline. So that's also another major initiative. On the tour operating side, one big thing is also how to dynamically and in real time connect to our suppliers. So the world is connecting more and more and more. So of course, that's also a topic for us. Traditionally, tour operator business, it's actually incredible. So, but they do contracts with the hoteliers, then they print it, then they type it in again into the system, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot of manual work in the past. And of course, this world is really changing fast. So this is another big topic on our agenda. This all needs to be supported, obviously, by IT. And one of the key things we do is also introducing our new reservation system. This is a simplified chart of our IT architecture. with our new reservation system in the middle, which is called Phoenix, actually Phoenix Unlimited. Phoenix was the name of our previous reservation system, which was in use for 20 years. And we have just changed it in Germany. We're still in the process of changing it. So the winter season is already booked on the new reservation system, while the summer season on the old one. So we're just in the middle of that migration, and it's a really big thing for us because it's really the absolute core system, which is used by a lot of staff, a lot of travel agents, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, of course, a big thing for us. But the good thing about this system, Phoenix Unlimited, and that's why we built it, is it's really able to handle very complex itineraries. So you can imagine that a travel agent does only have to type in, okay, the customer wants to have this flight, this hotel, and then the system automatically calculates in the background all the transfers, etc., that the person needs. And not only from the airport to the hotel, also from Hotel A to Hotel B, from Hotel B to Hotel C, etc. So it's a lot of work which is going to be done in the background. And that's a real USP for us. And that's also a big part of our business, really these complex itineraries that some people do, especially in the long-haul business. So in this sense, the new system is really capable of doing this. Plus, as opposed to the previous system, it is able to connect directly with interfaces to the suppliers, bed banks, et cetera, et cetera. So it gives us a lot of opportunities to have always the best rates, to grow our products, to be more efficient, automate, et cetera, et cetera. And we have actually not only introduced it in Germany, we already introduced it also in Switzerland for the brand Cooni. You may know that we acquired the Cooni tour operators actually a year ago, and we already put this new system in place. And this is only the start. So we plan to actually roll out the system also to other markets. Talking about other markets, we are also in the UK, but with a very different business. In UK, with the brand Cooni, we are really a luxury brand. So one of the mottos is hand-picked. So it's not a broad portfolio. It's really a hand-picked portfolio of very good products that we would like to recommend to our customers. And premium service. And the premium service, a big element in this is also the personal travel expert in the retail stores. So the key belief is that the experience, the customer experience already starts with the booking. And I don't know how many of you have maybe been into a retail store of Cooni? Not many, some. That's very good. They are very nice. So I would really recommend to go to one. And also, actually, the appearance of the store already shows also the ambition that we have as a really luxury provider for people that, for example, want to spend their honeymoon in a very nice hotel. So obviously, we also have a website in the UK, but we found out that people that go into the store, make an appointment, actually leave with a booking value much higher. So it's almost 50% more that they actually not pay for the same, but they choose a product which then has a price almost 50% more than our customers doing on the web. So that's why it may sound a little bit backwards driven, but that's why actually we try to convince people on our platform to actually go and make an appointment in the retail shops, because also we think that's really the premium service and the premium consultation we want to deliver to the customers. And of course, one of the key drivers of success for Cooni UK is also the customer orientation. So if we don't deliver towards the customer and don't meet his expectations, of course, this model cannot work. So we have invested a lot of time, a lot of energy in driving up the customer satisfaction. The key performance indicator for that is the Net Promoter Score. Who knows the Net Promoter Score? Some don't. So it's actually it's based on the question if you would actually recommend the product or the company to a friend or family. So you can choose on a scale between 0 and 10, and based on a formula, it comes out as a number on a scale from -100 and +100. And actually, we are reaching almost 80 on the scale, asking the customer after the booking if he was really happy with the booking, or, as I said, if he'd recommend to go to a Coney shop to a friend or family. And actually, I don't know any travel company who's achieving this high score. So 80 is really, really very high. So if everybody who's familiar with the scale of the Net Promoter Score, that's very high. So we are very proud of that. But of course, we want to become even better because we really think that customer retention is a key driver of success. So looking not only at source markets, also at the destinations, we have growing a lot our DMC, or Destination Management Company network. We have 17 right now around the globe. So US, Asia, Europe, Mediterranean area, et cetera, et cetera. We are still growing it. And why do we do this? Because we think to have a very close relationship and proximity to the suppliers in the destination, also to the customer when he's in the destination, is really key. I mean, that's where the customer really makes, where he really makes his holiday. So you want to be close to the customer just right there. And also, of course, having good relationships with the hoteliers is more important than ever for a tour operator. And one of the initiatives we undertake there, in addition to the growth of the network itself, is that we want to connect our destination management companies with our tour operating business in a seamless way. So this means that we want to get away from this manual double work, which is so common in this industry. So we have a standard system which is used by the DMCs, and this system connects automatically the rates, inventory, the contracts, etc., to our tour operating business. So on real time, basically. So this makes sure that we are much faster on the market. And maybe to some of you, this sounds really like something basic, and maybe for some people working outside of this industry, it really sounds like basic, but for a traditional tour operator, it's not, because we have really a very fragmented value chain so far. So we are getting also there to get away from this double work and connect our business even more. If you ask me what's our key challenges with all these things going on in our transformation, I would say it's speed. We're just too fast. No, just kidding. We are maybe not fast enough. Of course, we are a big company with a big heritage, big history, etc. So we cannot do everything at the same time. And also, we have, of course, a specific culture. And then, as you saw, we are different companies in each country. So, of course, this is normally not what is a speedboat. Normally, a speedboat looks differently, more maybe in the first presentations where we saw. So sometimes I'm a little bit jealous with the speed a little startup can do, but we are not a startup. So, of course, this is a challenge, but that's why actually we put a lot of effort in prioritizing and really setting the right priorities, because we cannot do everything at the same time. And also, I like the thing with the minimal viable product. We also like the agile thinking. So to start with the first step, just go and run, see if it works, measure the success, and then adapt, go on, change, etc. So not to have these long projects, and then maybe at the end something comes out of that. That's also not something that's typically in the DNA of a big company, but that's also one of my things that I try to push to get much more agile in this sense. So I would like to conclude my presentation with some final thoughts. First of all, as you may notice, transformation for us is an absolute necessity, as I think it is for all the companies that are similar to us, like TUI, Thomas Cook, etc. At the same time, transformation is not easy, and there are some important things to consider. So we believe it needs to be really specific to your context. That's why with us, transformation is really different by country, by business unit. You have to manage a lot of trade-offs. So, for example, we also have the trade-off between group-wide synergies and then the local specific needs. So a trade-off that a lot of big companies know. Obviously, technology is really key and plays a major role, and I cannot emphasize it enough, speed is really important. So I also recommend you to try out, learn, and adapt. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dirk, for that. That's lovely. Thank you. Now, if you ask anyone in travel what are the two most disruptive businesses in travel, you'll be told Uber and particularly for us, Airbnb. And our next presenter's been doing some research on the effect of Airbnb. So let's hear from him. Let's welcome Jerome. Just on the.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Airbnb, the facts. We are the only research institute that can give a thorough insight into the numbers of Airbnb in Europe. We have recently issued a report on Amsterdam, and today I'm also going to comment on the report that we are issuing today about the situation in London. So we started this research some time ago already as a Delphi study, mainly focused upon the experience of Airbnb. So we wanted to tell the industry, we wanted to tell our students how this experience was different. And we did this study with a group of industry people. Scenarios have been published. But what happened during the session is that at the table was the director of research of Holland Marketing, of MBTC. And when he left the room, he said, yes, I'm a little bit disappointed because I had hoped that you could tell me how many tourists we have in Amsterdam because of Airbnb. And I thought, well, this is big because this means that he doesn't have a clue about the number of tourists that we have in Amsterdam. And the city of Amsterdam does not know how many tourists they have currently in Amsterdam because of this phenomenon. So then we refocused our research on the quantitative side of Airbnb. How big is it? What's the magnitude of the phenomenon? And then we stumbled upon another aspect of the study, which was the commercial side of Airbnb. So that was then the third research question. Why don't we have any data? Is it that it slips their mind at Airbnb to share these data with us? No. They have very good reasons to keep these data to themselves. In the first place, they want to avoid cities to regulate the situation of Airbnb. So they do not disclose who their hosts are, where they are located, etc., etc. In the second place, this gives them a commercial advantage. So they know more about these travelers than any other travel companies, and they want to keep that competitive advantage. And in the third place, it's part of their marketing strategy. So they have this mantra about living like a local, and we tend to believe that. And this hipster image is dependent on them keeping these data to themselves. They do publish some studies without the underlying data, and all these studies have the same message. It's very positive. They all follow the same template, and they all have this message. So we started to look further, are there no data? And we started working with scrapers, with scrape data. And scrape data are data that are available on their public websites, and they are being put into a database. We have two databases for every destination, for every city. A property file, which lists all the units of Airbnb with their characteristics, and a transaction file, the daily updates of the status of each unit. And it gives us the following databases for the 4 cities we have so far analyzed. So, for instance, for Amsterdam, we had almost 90,000 property records and almost 4 million transaction records. 4 million doesn't mean that there were 4 million transactions. A transaction record can also mean today there was no transaction. And then we match those two files, and then for Amsterdam, for instance, we keep 15,000 active Airbnb properties in Amsterdam for 2015. We do the same for London, and for London, we then stay with 55,000 active properties for London in 2015. Now, we issued a report on Amsterdam just before the summer, and demand growth of Airbnb, meaning the number of units sold, was 474% in 2015. So this was a good year for Airbnb. Last Friday, I had a discussion with somebody at MBTC, at Holland.com, and she said, well, we're currently seeing, and we're currently making our calculations, And the numbers you have for 2015, they seem to double for 2016. Do you think that is possible? And I said, yes, I think that is completely likely. Because if you break down the numbers, it even sounds a little bit disappointing. Just 100% growth for 2016. That's Amsterdam. Then we looked at where these properties were, because Airbnb always claims that it empowers the residents of the peripheral neighborhoods, the less privileged residents of a city. Now in Amsterdam we find, on the contrary, that it's totally concentrated in the city centers. And then our report has detailed breakdowns for every month and for every neighborhood in Amsterdam. So we go very much in detail. And the reason is we don't work with samples, but we work with the entire databases of 4 million records in this case. Now, we've just done the same thing for London. And London is a more mature Airbnb market. So the demand growth in London for Airbnb was just 200% in 2015. Average daily rate for Airbnb in London is £113 last year, and total revenue is 228 million. The discussion always is Airbnb incremental, meaning does it cannibalize the hotel market or not? Well, many people say it doesn't, and for Amsterdam we agreed, because in Amsterdam we still saw growth in the hotel market, so they appear not to be affected by Airbnb. In London, however, I start to doubt, because in London we see a decline in hotel performance, and we see Airbnb still going up. So it is thinkable that Airbnb takes a bite out of the hotel market. How many visitors has London had last year because of Airbnb? We calculate that in the following way. We know the number of overnight stays on Airbnb. This is an exact number, so this is the nights at Airbnb we have detected. We also know the length of stay of all these visits. What we don't know exactly, and Airbnb doesn't know it either, is the party size that visits a unit on Airbnb. So we take two assumptions there. We take either the maximum or the average of 2 and the maximum visitors. So for instance, if you have a unit that admits 4 people, we calculate both with 4 people and with 3 people in this case. And then we get these averages. And then we make a calculation, and we have 1.3 million visitors through Airbnb to London in 2015. And that takes me to the last research question about sharing and about the commercial aspects of Airbnb. The definition of sharing is the more efficient use of underutilized assets, and you all probably know this example of the power drill that we don't use a lot and that we could share among an entire neighborhood. Rachel Botsman was the one who gave that example. Airbnb itself, because they didn't quite fit into this sharing definition, launched a new definition that is focused on human connection, commerce with the promise of human connection, Joe Gebbia. Now we have looked at those two definitions with different criteria that we could find in our data. In the first place, is it a room that you share with someone, like the old-style couch surfing, or is somebody renting out an entire apartment or an entire home? And we found in 4 cities, A stands for Amsterdam, B for Berlin, L for London, M for Madrid, that the shared room is completely marginal on Airbnb. And the vast majority are entire homes and apartments. And then we thought, well, but wait, you used to have those home swaps where people go on holiday and they let people use their house. Would that be the case? Then we looked at the days that the entire homes were available on Airbnb. So if it was less than a month, then you would have the old-style home swap. And also that is a minority of those cases. So that was the first criterion. Mind you that this is unlike sharing including according to both definitions, because it's not an underutilized asset if you rent out an entire home, but you don't have contact either with the local if he is not at his home. So if you don't share a room, it's not sharing according to both definitions. Then we looked at the type of hosts. How many houses does somebody offer on Airbnb? Because there the rumor was that you had a lot of multi-listers. And that seems to be true. Between 1/3 and a half of all the units are being offered by multi-listers in the 4 cities that we looked at. And for London, this was around 60% by multi-listers. We made a distinction because in the case of 2 listings, we said, well, that can be a special circumstance, a recent divorce or a recent marriage or something. 3 to 10 are small investors for us. And more than 10 listings are normally management companies, Airbnb intermediaries. Then we looked at the spatial distribution. So I already said in Amsterdam we saw that it was concentrated in the city centers, and we see that for every single city. And these numbers are even conservative because this is the offer, the number of units in each neighborhood. But of course, if you offer something in Westminster, it will perform much better in occupancy, in price, etc., than in the outskirts of London. How expensive is it? And this was a question that we raised because ADR in Amsterdam had grown very close to the ADR of hotels. And you see these very strange examples on Airbnb where you think, well, how is this possible? Now, if it's affordable, it doesn't mean that it's sharing. But if it would not be affordable, if it would be exclusive, it would exclude sharing. Now, we see in the 4 cases that Amsterdam is the most extreme, where ADR for hotels and for Airbnb are so close together. The differences are bigger in the rest of the cities. And all these graphs are right skewed, meaning that the majority of the offer is low cost on Airbnb. The other thing which is important to notice is that we tend to generalize Airbnb. But Airbnb is very different in each city according to the local circumstances, etc. So Amsterdam and London are alike. High hotel fees, meaning high incentives for investors to buy properties and put them on Airbnb, whereas Berlin and Madrid are much cheaper and evolve differently. So general conclusion, decentralized platform with differences. The vast majority is commercial and a small minority of actual sharers. Destinations as London and Amsterdam with high hotel ADR have a strong incentive for commercial investors. This sharpens socio-economic divides, because if you have a big house and you put it on Airbnb, you make more money than if you have a small house on the outskirts. And it's primarily a low-cost option. We looked at regulation, because now cities try to control Airbnb. Does it have any effect? Well, we could check that because Berlin tried to ban Airbnb as of May 1. And so this doesn't seem shocking, but it actually is, because after May 1, you don't see any effect of Airbnb, on the supply, on demand, etc., etc. You do see one effect, and it's become more expensive. So people think, well, I might be fined, so let me ask a little bit more. Why is it bad news? It has an effect on local rent prices. So for instance, for those less privileged residents of cities, students, etc., they're being expelled from the houses that they used to live in. Unsharing. So this is not an underutilized asset that of which we intensify the use. This is a scarce asset that of which we make the use non-permanent. Which means that our lives become more commercial because we have opportunity costs if we don't participate in this so-called sharing. If we don't put our house on Airbnb, an example is Tour de France started in the Netherlands 2 years ago. People would say no to the friends and family if they would come to visit them because they could put their house on Airbnb. Will you go on a Friday night to a bar if you can offer your job skills on a job sharing platform? That is commercialization of our lives. Now, is this really a genuinely different experience? We believe, in general, that it is, but that is because the marketing doctrine of Airbnb is to make us believe that. The Culting of Brands is a book written by Douglas Atkin in 2003, and Douglas Atkin currently reappears as the global head of community of Airbnb. So my message to hotel people is, don't believe this mantra of living like a local. Look critically at what Airbnb offers differently. It has tangible differences that may be interesting for people. We were discussing how attractive Airbnb can be to families, unlike hotels, because if you go with 2 children, what do you do with your hotel rooms, etc. Recent research has shown that people use Airbnb for an array of reasons, and all these 5 reasons are present. So not everybody wants to talk to a local. Other people want to be more independent. Other people just go for the cheap rates, and other people just go for the surprise. But you have this array of reasons, and we don't have to buy just the marketed narratives. Now, for information on the reports on Amsterdam, London, and soon Berlin and Madrid, you can contact us at the Hotel School, and also for other research finding, I would welcome you on this blog site. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jeroen. Very interesting facts. So we've got a little time, ladies and gentlemen, for questions. Who'd like to ask the first question? Just raise your hand. Well, listen, while you're all thinking, either I didn't see anyone, Andy, let me start with you, because one thing you mentioned was build on what customers do. I think you said that. We're talking about innovation and introducing innovative businesses, but do customers know what they want? I mean, do customers know that they would enjoy using Uber, or they would enjoy using Airbnb? Do we actually have to be the innovators and teach our customers what to do?
No, it's a good question. I guess one of the things that I'd be looking to do is, if you're purely basing it on what customers say they want, you can be misled at times here, and maybe Uber's a good example of that. One of the good ways of getting around that, and sorry if this sounds slightly unethical here, but say you've got an example of wanting to sell artisan products from North Wales or whatever. You can go and do lots of market research about whether customers want to buy that, or you can design a dummy website, you chuck some money at PPC, you throw people through to it, and then you have a big buy button. It doesn't do anything, but you know that people actually clicked on the buy button, therefore they are likely to have to buy the product behind it. Yeah, and it gives you much more accurate information to actually monitor what they might do online or on mobile here than necessarily just asking the question. So you can get much more reliable information from giving them a dummy product or an MVP, as was talked about earlier.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Who'd like to ask a question? Yes, do you want to wait till the microphone comes round to you at super high speed? There we are. And just tell us who you are, where you are from, just to put your question in context. Thank you.
My name is Richard Mühlrath from Stockholm, from Richard Travel Group, Stureplan's Business Travel. I would like to ask the German gentleman, yes, why do you think that, I mean, Sweden, Germany, and until now UK are members of European Union, and we have about the same school system, we have a lot of things that we have in common. How come that Germany is so late regarding changing from travel agency to buying or purchasing travel through internet? That was my question.
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, actually, it is a very good question. So I think part of the answer is that there's a law in Germany that you have to have price parity between the channels. So the customers know, or most of them know, that actually, at least for the tour operator products, if they go on the website or in the retail store, they will get it for the same price. So this also means that in a way, they get the service in the retail shop for free. So I think this is one reason. I don't think it's the only one, but I think it's in a way also protecting a little bit the travel agencies. The other reason is that simply I think the Germans are not the early adopters. So because if you also look at trends like mobile phone adoption, etc., Germany is always behind. I don't really know why. It seems to be a cultural thing. But also when there's studies from Google, for example, when does actually the mobile traffic hit the 50% mark and is more than the desktop traffic, while countries like Japan, US, and also UK are further ahead. Germany is having the same trend, but later on. So I think it's a question of timing and also the question of the legal environment and the pricing environment.
Yeah, Dirk, do you think that it might also be something to do with the acceptance of the use of credit cards in each country for payments? Because if you're going to have an online booking, it'll be fulfilled payment-wise by credit card. I don't know what the credit card payment habits are between the two countries, but I think there is much higher penetration in the UK. Would that be right?
I'm not sure if the penetration of the credit cards itself is much higher, but it is true that also Germans seem to be more reluctant to use the credit card for higher amounts of money in the web. So it's another thing, like the mobile adoption, that I think they're just a little bit behind.
Okay, fine. And by the way, you can actually put a question in anonymously through slido.com if you don't actually want to put your hand up. But does anyone want to put their hand up and ask another question? Yes, just here. Can you wait for the microphone to come round? That'd be good. It's coming on your right-hand side now. And then do tell us who you are, where you're from. It'll be great. Thank you.
My name is Claudia Pedroni. I own 2 hotels in the south of France, in Nice. And I would like to know about the Airbnb result. Why do you think people really take the choice of the apartment? It's only because of the price? Or they are more independent in an apartment? Or what is the conclusion exactly?
Jerome,
Yes.
your thoughts?
That was not our own research, but there was a recent PhD study in Canada, and that distinguished 5 different segments in Airbnb users. That was the money seekers, which go for the price, the actual collaborative consumers, which are the people that are convinced about sharing. Then you have the people that go for the surprise, and then you have 2 types of experience seeker. One of these segments is the actual pretended Airbnb marketed local experience people, and the other people are people that go for an independent stay in a hotel. So for hotels, the tangible advantages of a client must also be taken into consideration, and the tangible advantages are, for instance, less money and more square meters. And that is a very concrete advantage that people may look for. But we cannot generalize because you have 5 different groups.
Did you analyze as well the different charges a hotel has instead of an apartment owner who does not pay VAT and things like that? Is there a research when this will change in different countries? I don't know in the UK if people have to pay the same taxes when they rent an apartment, but in France, in any way, they don't have to pay VAT already, and it's 20%. So if I can put down my rates from 20%, of course it will be nicer for the client to choose a hotel where he has a security in the night, a night guard, you have access for disabled people. All those things are not able to have in an apartment, I think.
So it's a question of the different, I suppose, regulation, taxation regimes between
fair competition.
hotels
Yeah.
and properties. Yeah.
I fully agree. So that is the main annoyance for hotels, that they comply with the rules, and Airbnb does not comply with the rules. And as I said in the beginning, cities don't have data about Airbnb, so they cannot enforce the rules even if they have them. So we see that in the case of Berlin. In some cities, such as Paris nowadays and Amsterdam, Airbnb does pay tourist tax. But we say, well, if you don't disclose how many tourists you have, except for our research, but Airbnb doesn't disclose those numbers, that is more like a donation to a city than an actual tax payment. So I totally agree with you. There's a big difference between charges that hotels or regular businesses face and that what, as we call it, an extractive company as Airbnb faces. So extractive in the sense that you have a city neighborhood where you have investments in tangible assets for the neighborhood. So you have street lighting, you have the streets themselves. and you have investments in the intangible assets of that neighborhood, such as the ambience. And those things have been put there by the city and by its residents. And Airbnb is a San Francisco company that benefits from these investments in neighborhoods and takes its commissions to San Francisco.
So is there any thought then, Jerome, that maybe one day the taxation regulation regime might change? I believe New York, for example, Airbnb stays are taxed the same as hotels now.
Yeah, well, but there's two issues there. One issue is regulation and the other is law enforcement. So many cities are now trying to regulate. But then how do you enforce your new rules? And we in Holland always think, well, in Germany, regulation and law enforcement is the same thing because Germans are very law-abiding. But we see in Berlin that people, since it's a gray circuit, people simply do not go by the rules in the case of Airbnb.
Thank you, thank you. Regis, let me ask you a question, if I can. We're talking about innovation in corporate travel. And I suppose two thoughts, first of all. Number one is the growth in unmanaged travel, I suppose maybe in Europe, sparked by the low-cost airlines, or let's call them direct sell or value-based airlines. They're not necessarily low-cost. And so there might be growth in unmanaged travel. And then that might be tempered by the more recent events over the last few years when we've had disruptive occurrences. For example, the Icelandic volcano cloud that shut down all European airspace, and then we had a few terrorism incidents. Is there a switch back towards managed travel as a result of disruption, do you think?
You might think that I'm going to speak for my own company or own benefit, but the truth is that this notion of unmanaged travel or tell the traveler you can book anything you want, we'll manage that after, that does not really take off. Like it has been really pushed upon a couple of technology companies, like Concur was one of them. They really promote this type of buying mechanism in the business travel. That does not really take off. And your example, if you look at the low-cost company, currently they come back. So most of the low-cost companies are currently available in the GDS. So they have been brought back to the classic channel. So we even consider, if you book today with EasyJet, with Celebrity, you will be considered as a booking within the channel. And yeah, the second one, briefly on the volcano or the terrorist attack, that also brings something around the notion of customer service, because what we bring at the end of the day is not booking, it's more customer service.
So it is one of the innovations that are now appearing in business travel would be tracking and security, tracking of travelers and making sure they're secure wherever they are. Is that a recent innovation in corporate
I would
travel?
use tracking the word tracking in a slightly different way, but yeah, we are here to monitor where people are and at least being able to provide data when something arises. Yeah.
Fine, thank you. Who has another question they'd like to ask? Well, while you're all thinking, Dirk, let me ask you a question. You mentioned your project Phoenix Unlimited, your big travel system. You said speed is key. I've seen presentations by heads of IT from organizations like Expedia, for example, where they found that even outsourcing development to India, even under their own control, it's too slow. They need teams in-house. You're a very big organization, and Phoenix sounds like a very big system. I do know if you're building travel systems of the kind that you're talking about, you could be talking about 20, 30 man-years of development. Are you finding that actually you can't keep pace, that your users are finding new innovations and new facilities, new functions they want before you can even get round to putting them on the development plan? Are you able to keep up?
So first of all, I agree it's a big thing. We also see that especially the reservation system, it was really an old legacy system, and in a way it took now several years to build that one. It's the dangers, of course, that once you introduced it, it's already in a way also legacy. But I believe that we can keep up. By the way, we developed this in-house.
Yes.
So we did not use any offshoring or things like this because
And
we
that
also
contributes to the speed, yes?
that I think it does.
Okay.
Also, we are more and more changing to agile development, and I think also when you like to work agile, doing it in-house is just much more. It's much more successful, I believe. So I'm really a strong believer of developing in-house, especially also close to the business, and that's what we do. And the agile way, and what I meant also with the prioritization, that's a little bit our answer to the speed, because you can be very fast, but we also don't want to do the right things. Of course, it all depends on resources, how many you put in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, I'm quite happy with the new system, and now the next level is to enhance it and build all the features that, as you mentioned, that we need now.
It's very exciting because I know big travel companies where big system initiatives like this have gone horribly wrong. So I think you're doing very well indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're reaching the end of our session here. Just to thank Andy, Regis, Dirk and Jerome very much indeed for a great session. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's give them a little hand. And before you go, I just want to let you know that actually tech networking drinks are being offered now. If you don't mind walking to the North Hall, the other hall, right down the other end by the Tech Theatre, kindly sponsored by Data Art and Nexmo, there are technology drinks reception there. And just a reminder that if you want copies of the presentations where my speakers have allowed that to be, just leave your business card at the exit. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.